Everyone, this is Rachel from Mini Ministry coming to end our series on the book of Genesis. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I know it's been a long road this year. I'm intending on doing more books of the Bible, and I think I'm going to take more of a Cliff Notes version because I've had some people say that they would rather just hear kind of my commentary on the books of the Bible. And so I'm going to start breaking it down that way. But we're going to finish Genesis in true fashion. I'm going to kind of half and half it. So bear with me on that. So if you have your Bibles, get them. We're going to be starting in Genesis 34. So today we're going to be going through Genesis 34 to the end of the book and Genesis 50. And so we're going to cover a lot of material, but within that is going to be one of my most favorite moments in the book of Genesis and my favorite person accounts. And I say that as it's the life of a person and the account of what they did and where they went. And I really like it. So we're going to kind of go fast through the first couple, and then we're going to hit it hard to oversee the scope of the person in reference, which I'm sure you probably already know if you are any sort of biblical scholar by merit. Okay, so Genesis 34 talks about the defiling of Dinah, and really what's happening here. Dinah is seen, Dinah is wanted, the man takes Dinah, the man rapes Dinah. Then because she's defiled, Jacob doesn't do anything about it, and then the brothers hear about it, and then they plot a way to take vengeance, because clearly you've taken our sister's innocence. We can't let that go. And that's a right thing. But here is a great example of one sin leading to another. We've talked about that before on this channel, how it's never just one sin. Here we have Dinah defiled, and then the brothers take action. They end up committing murder. One sin leads to another. And it's sad. They're just trying to advocate for their sister and trying to kind of right a wrong. Murder is not going to right the wrong of your sister's rape, but in their minds, it does. And so, again, I'm not spending a lot of time on this. You can read Genesis 34, but it's just a reminder that these things have all been done before. There's nothing new under the sun, as Ecclesiastes says. And we have to be made aware that these things have happened since the beginning. It's sad. It's unfortunate. God doesn't want that, but it's just part of the fallen world we now live. Okay, then Genesis 35. So this is going to go fast. Genesis 35, God appears to Jacob. He renames him to Israel. Now, this can be a very confusing thing. We think of Israel when you just say that, and you think of the nation of Israel, and that's what we think now. But this is not that moment. We're not talking about the nation of Israel. Jacob is literally renamed Israel, and he is going to be the head of what's going to become the 12 tribes of the nations of Israel. Okay, and he then confirms his promise with him, the promise that you're going to enter a land, you're going to be many nations, much good is going to come from your descendants. And by God reconfirming that covenant, he's just reminding Jacob of who he is, reminding him, hey, I'm still here, I'm still at it, I'm still with you. I don't give up. God does not change. God does not give up on his promises. He continues forth. So he's reminding him of that. And he's just preparing him for what's coming next. Rachel, the one that he loves, right, that he worked 14 years for, she dies giving birth to Benjamin. Now, she only has the two kids, Benjamin and Joseph. And so this is very important. I want you to remember her. And I want you to remember this moment because it will be important here in just a little bit. Okay, so she dies giving birth to Benjamin. The 12 sons are then named by who they come by and kind of where they're going. We're setting up the 12 tribes of Israel. So this is really important. And even though it can be kind of annoying to read through histories of people, this is a moment I want you to slow down and really read it and understand, because these are important names and important people. Okay, so Leah gives birth to Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. Okay, then we have Rachel, who gives birth to Joseph and Benjamin. She only has the two, right? Bilhah gives birth to Dan and Naphtali. And then Zilpah gives birth to Gad and Asher. And through these 4 women, we have the 12 tribes. This is important to remember because these men are going to come up consistently through a lot of the Pentateuch, which is the first 5 books of the Old Testament, okay? Then Isaac dies. Very sad, the end of his life, okay? Genesis 36 goes through the generations. Lots of who begot who, kids, families, relatives, clans, tribes. All this stuff is together. You can read it if you want. Take your time. Lots of names. Go slow. Then we get to the highlight of the end of Genesis and one of my personal favorites. So I'm very excited to break this down for you. Genesis 37 through 50, with the exception of Genesis 38, all expels to us the life of Joseph. Now, it's amazing because, for one, Joseph is given so much space in the Old Testament. Not everybody's given this much space to go through their life and go through their ups and downs. But Joseph does, and I think it's for a purpose. I think it's because God really wants to slow down and understand and see exactly what is happening. And that's what we're going to do today, is slow down just a little to spend most of our time on the life of Joseph. Again, chapter 38 talks about Judah and Tamar and the defiling taking place there. We're not going to get into that. It's a little kind of side note of what happens, okay? So the life of Joseph. I'm going to break this down to help you understand, because this is one of my favorites. I love it. I love the whole Bible. But Joseph is literally one of my favorite accounts. Okay, so Joseph is the daughter of Rachel, her and Benjamin, and Joseph is the favorite of his father. Now, we talk about you shouldn't have favoritism. Joseph is a great reason why. All of his brothers know that he's the favorite. Everyone's aware that Joseph is beloved. That comes at a cost. When you have multiple kids and you favor one over the other, it's going to be clear to the other children. And they're going to resent you for it. And it's going to be hard for everyone to kind of have an equal playing field. And that's exactly what happens. In fact, he is so loved that his father makes him a special coat of many colors. And that sets him apart. That makes his brothers hate him even more, right? Now he gets special stuff. All right. He is a dreamer. In fact, he talks about there are moments where he has these dreams and he tells his brothers, I had this dream where there's these stars bowing down and these stalks are bowing down. And they're like, you think we're going to bow down to you? And this just adds to the already negativity and I'm going to say it, the hatred they have for their brother. You shouldn't hate, but they literally hate Joseph. And that is so sad to me, that they hate their own flesh and blood. They hate their brother, but they do. Okay? So much to the point that one day he's told, hey, go check on your brothers. They're tending the sheep in Dothan. So they go and they're like, no, they're over in Shechem. So I'm going to go over there. So he goes over there and his brothers see him coming and they're like, now is our chance to finally be rid of this dreamer. We're so sick of his dreams. We're so sick of him thinking he's more important than we are. We're going to get rid of him. So they're like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take him and we're going to kill him. That's right. Again, they harbored hatred in their heart and it turns to murder. And they're like, we're going to kill him. That's it. And we'll take his coat and we'll rub it in blood. We'll take it to father and we'll be like, oh, well, look what happened. A beast must have got him. But one brother, Reuben, stands up and goes, let's not do that, guys. That's not a rice thing. There's a well over here. Let's just throw him in the pit and just let it be. That way, blood's not on hands. But all the while, the word says that Reuben planned to come back and rescue Joseph. Reuben wanted to do the right thing. He did not want his brother's life on his hands. He did not want his life taken. Good for Reuben. That was the plan. But as this plan's unfolding then, they see some traders coming along, a whole caravan of traders. And they're like, better yet, let's sell him into slavery. For one, we can make money. Hey, who doesn't like going home with some extra money in your pocket? And then he's out of our lives. He'll go on to another country. We'll never see him again. It's no longer our problem. So the brothers go. They get him out, which where Reuben went, I don't know, but Reuben wasn't with them because he says so later. They get him out. They sell him to the traders. He gets sold into the house of Potiphar, and he's sold as a slave. Joseph, who was beloved by his father, who did nothing to deserve the hatred and the desire for murder and the jealousy that was coming after him, gets sold into slavery. He is probably, I think it says around 17 years old at this point. He is a young man. He's a young adult. And he gets sold into slavery. He was a good-looking man. He was strong. He was, probably mighty because they worked a lot. And so they saw him and they desired him. He'd be good for slave labor. Reuben then goes back to save him later, it tells us, and he's not there, and he kind of worried about it. Poor Reuben, all those years not knowing. They probably told him we sold him into slavery, but his heart must have dropped when he didn't see him in there. They take it back to his father. They they put blood on it. They take it back to his father, and he's sad. Jacob is utterly sad. His favorite child has died, and he's just heartbroken, literally heartbroken. And it just causes him to cry and weep and do all these things that you do when your child you believe is dead. And the brothers see this. He is in severe mourning because of what he believes is the death of Joseph. All the while, Joseph is actually alive. Joseph gets sold into Potiphar's house, and God is with Joseph. Now, this means that God is with them, meaning that Joseph knew God. Joseph obeyed God. Joseph loved God. And it was evident in his work, in his life, and how he upheld himself. This is, I think, one of the biggest takeaways God wants us to learn from this account. Exactly that. Joseph was the same guy to everybody. He did the same thing everywhere he went. So should we. Okay, so he gets in Potiphar's house. He goes about. Potiphar is very happy with what he's doing, so he puts him in charge of things because he sees that God is with them. He's very happy with how things come about. And all is going well. For years, he works in the house of Potiphar. He's getting respect. He's earned that, right? But Potiphar's wife wanted Joseph. Potiphar's wife was like, tasty looking guy there, right? And if we learned anything from the defiling of Dinah, it's that when men see and want, sometimes they go too far. In this case, it's a woman. She sees, she wants, she's going to go too far. So she approaches Joseph and she's like, just go sleep with me. Joseph was like, no. And not just, this is what's great. I love this moment because what Joseph says in reply to her is absolutely beautiful. Because he makes a statement, he makes a statement that I've been entrusted with all that Potiphar has given me. I'm not going to burn that trust. I work for him. I do a good job. I'm not going to misuse the trust that's been given to me. That's the first thing. So he's honoring his employer. The second thing, he then says it would be dishonoring to God. Joseph stands for truth. Joseph stands on the mountain of right and says, guess what? I see that you want me and you've been coming after me and nagging me at this. I'm not going to do it. Not because just that I don't want to, which he never says that, but he has a moral implication. I'm not going to be offensive to my employer and I'm not going to offend God. Y'all, this is so beautiful. And it reminds me actually later of what Paul says, right? You slaves, obey your masters. Joseph exemplifies this. He is so obedient to his employer, but he's also obedient to God. He's not willing to give that up. And that is the true heart of this man. And it is beautiful and it is lovely. And it just, y'all, it just fills me with joy when I hear this. Because that's how we should be. We should be the same person in everything we do and in everywhere we go. So whether we are in church or whether we are home or whether we're out with friends, we should be the same godly people that we are all the time. Joseph exemplifies this. He is that guy. He's in front of Potiphar's wife, who was clearly an attractive woman. But he stands his ground. He says it very honestly, very appropriately, but he stands his moral ground. And this is beautiful because clearly they all knew that God was with him. He has probably stood his ground before. But the wife was, wanting. She's like, come on, just come to bed with me, come to bed with me. He's like, no, I'm not going to do it. So Joseph decides to run away. He is sick of her nagging. So Joseph goes to run away. And as he runs, his shirt kind of comes undone and the wife holds on to it and Joseph runs away. As this happens, she looks down. She realizes she has his shirt and she begins to scream. Well, guess what happens? If you hear a woman screaming, you're going to come running. And that's what happens. Part of the palace people come running. What's the matter? What's the matter? I mean, it's Potiphar's wife. No, that Israelite you brought into the house, he tried to defile me. Look, I have his shirt. What are you going to do about it? That night, her husband comes home and she lays all this out for him. Now, this has to hurt him because Joseph's never done anything like this before. Joseph has done everything right up to this point. There's not one complaint about him written. And I'm sure it hurt Potiphar to be like, well, I can't go against my wife. My wife says this. I can't disregard that. So he takes Joseph and he throws him into prison. So he's been enslaved. He's been mentally murdered by his brothers. Now he's been falsely accused of rape and put into prison. He's falsely imprisoned. Poor Joseph. If anybody had a time to complain, Joseph is one that has an error of complaint. Yet not one is registered in the biblical account. And sure, maybe he did complain. But the fact that there's none registered about him of a complaint, I think just adds to the beauty of who this man is and what we're seeing in his character. So he gets falsely imprisoned. He is now in prison. While he's in prison, He gets highly acclaimed. Again, God is still with him. He is still standing on that foundation, and he is being firm with God. And he's like, this is it. And so while he's in prison, they're very aware of who he is. So he gets put in charge of the prisoners. He himself as the prisoner gets put in charge. He's leading the prison. That's really cool, right? Head prisoner. While he's in prison, though, there's a couple people in there. So Pharaoh, his cupbearer and his baker, they're in there. And they have these dreams. And they're like, oh, if only someone could interpret these dreams. And Joseph goes, you know what? Man can't, but God can. And if you tell me what they mean, I bet God would let me know what they are. Okay, so they tell him. And he explains what the dreams mean. And he tells the cupbearer specifically, remember me when you get back to Pharaoh. I shouldn't be here. Remember me. Sure. Sure enough, their dreams, come true. The baker gets impaled, just as he said, and the cupbearer gets put back in his position. And the word says that he forgot about Joseph. He gets put back into his job. He gets back into wealth and prominence. He forgets about Joseph. A moment of silence for Joseph. Very sad, right? Here's Joseph who's doing all the right things. He's following God. He's being obedient. He's loving the Lord. And he interprets these dreams for these guys. And then he gets forgotten about. That is just so sad. My heart goes out to Joseph so deeply in this moment. But meanwhile, 2 years go by. 2 more years he sat in prison. Poor man. He sits in prison. Then one day, Pharaoh has a dream. And he sees 7 sick cows and 7 fat cows. And the sickly cows eat up the fat cows. And they still look as sickly as ever. Then he sees the same thing with heads of stock. 6 sad stalks. 7 sad stalks. That's hard to say. And then 7 prominent ones. The sad ones take over the prominent ones. Similar things. He goes around to all his people. Nobody can interpret these dreams. And in this moment, the cupbearer goes, wait a minute. Hey, there was a guy when I was in prison who actually interpreted my dreams and the baker's dreams. And they both came exactly true. And I actually totally forgot about him till now. But maybe you should try him. He might be able to tell you what you mean. So they go and get Joseph. They clean him up. They shave him, all those good things, because you can't go before Pharaoh and look all filthy. Clean him up, and he goes before him, and he goes, can you tell me, interpret what this dream means? And again, Joseph is like, it's not man's duty to interpret dreams, but God Almighty can, so I can beseech him on your behalf. Joseph gives God the glory. Joseph makes it clear that God's the one who's doing this. It is not I. It is not man. God and God alone. Again, this just adds to the character and the awesomeness of Joseph in this moment, because he is making sure that God gets the glory for one, but he's also making sure that Pharaoh hears him loud and clear. God's doing this. I might be giving you the information, but God's doing this. Okay? What a way to be evangelistic without being evangelistic, by the way. Love that. Okay? So Pharaoh lays out his dreams for him, and he goes, God has explained this to me. Here's what it means. There's going to be 7 years of plenty. 7 years of really good bumper crop. It's going to be great. But then there's going to be 7 years of famine, unlike a famine we've ever had before. And that's what these dreams mean. So you need to find a man to come alongside and to prepare you and your country for this, because it's going to be bad. And if God says something, it's going to happen. Pharaoh thinks about it. He's like, that's a great idea. We should put someone in charge to make sure that this happens. And he goes, you know what? You seem like the right guy for the job. Again, Joseph gets put in a place of prominence. In fact, he becomes second in command in Egypt. The only one who has more power and authority than him is Pharaoh himself. Get this, right? He goes from being the favorite son with his robe to being sold as a slave, practically murdered by his brothers, accused of rape, put falsely imprisoned, forgotten about in prison, then gets restored to the second most prominent job in the land. Don't ever tell me that God cannot use somebody and that God just gives up on people. Because Joseph, time and time again, could have been completely forgotten about. But God restores him over and over and over again. Because Joseph is patient and Joseph is willing to be obedient even in the midst of horrible, annoying circumstances. You and I might sit in traffic and be annoyed because of how someone is driving, and our patience runs thin in 1 or 2 minutes. But here is Joseph, who through all of this, through slavery, through false imprisonment, through being forgotten, through just the negativity of life. I mean, he's apart from his family, all these things. He grew up as a young adult in slavery and in prison. He's still praising God. He's still trusting and obeying. Y'all, that gets me every time I read this account, because we fight ourselves. We can become our own worst enemy. And Joseph could have done that. Joseph could have sat there. Ooh, sorry. Joseph could have sat there and Joseph could have had a pity party. And Joseph could have been like, look at what keeps happening to me. Why does this keep happening? What is God doing? Where are you, God? And he could have just been awful. And he could have hated his brothers in return. And he could have turned his back on God. But he doesn't. Because he knows it's not God's doing per se. It is God's doing. But he trusts God so much that whatever's going to work out, works out. And sure enough, God sends him. And he realized it's for a purpose. Because then the 7 years of good come. They have a bumper crop. Everything went well. And they put it in the storehouses. And they took a fifth of everything and they stored it back. And they kept track of where all this food was. After the 7 years of plenty come 7 years of horrible. And it's a famine, it says, unlike what was ever seen before. And it stretched not just to Egypt, but it stretched further than Egypt. It was surrounding the nation of Egypt. It went pretty far. And people got hungry and people got desperate. So people had to come to Joseph to say, hey, we're hungry. How much to buy some grain? And they would sell him grain. And he was in charge of all of that. That's quite the task, to be in charge of all that. He kept good records and kept track. Well, the famine stretches all the way to where his family lived. I think it's Canaan. And they're like, we need grain. So he sends his sons, minus Benjamin, to go buy grain. And in the course of this is what's amazing. This is part 2 of his life that is astounding and great. They go, and it says that Joseph recognized his brothers. Now, time has passed. Like, I wrote this down. I can't remember how many years, but it's been like over 20 years have passed. I don't know about you, but you change a lot in 20 years. He probably had facial hair. He was 17 when he was sold into slavery. He's a grown man now. He looks completely different. And mind you, the brothers think he's probably dead at this point, or he was enslaved and he could have died in slavery. So they're not at all thinking that it could be his brother. But Joseph recognizes them. And he's like, oh, looky who's here. Now, Joseph has an option. Joseph can be cruel to them. Joseph could throw them in prison for being rude to him. Joseph could just say, nope, not going to sell you any grain. I have that authority. I don't have to give you any. And he would have been well within his legal power to do so. Pharaoh gave him all the power to do that. And he could have. But Joseph, if we learned anything from his character so far, is not that kind of guy. Joseph cares. Joseph wants to do the right thing. But Joseph also wants to kind of see who these boys have become. Are they still harboring hatred? Are they have they forgiven themselves? Have they moved on? Where are they now? So he kind of puts them through a couple tests, right? And he asks them, oh, you must be spies. Oh, no, we're not spies. One of our brothers is gone, another is back home, which is true. They tell him the truth about their family, which he would know, right? Well, you keep one here. I'm going to keep one of your brothers here. And you go back, bring your youngest brother back with you. And then, we'll talk again. Okay. So a brother is left behind. Okay. And they go back. And his father's like, what? What are you talking about? He goes, the man was harsh. When they get back, they realize that all the money they had used to pay for the grain was back in their bags, which causes them even more alarm. They're going to think that they stole the grain. They're going to think that something's wrong. And now they get even more scared. After a while, it doesn't tell us how much time goes by, they find that they need grain again because food only lasts so long. And they implore to their father, let us go back. Let's take Benjamin and go back. And he's like, no way. Now, in all fairness, Jacob doesn't want to lose Benjamin. He lost Joseph, right? In his mind, Joseph's dead. And he doesn't want to lose the other son of Rachel because he loved Rachel more than any others. And so he doesn't want to do that. And they implore him, Father, he made it clear if we don't bring Benjamin back with us, he's not going to sell us any grain. Why should we all die? Because we're scared to take Benjamin with us. Let's just take him. And some of the brothers are like, we will make sure he's safe. We'll do everything in our power, right? So they track back to Egypt and they take Benjamin. And they go back and again, Joseph sees him. And every time Joseph gets more weepy. In fact, several times within the accounts, when he sees his brother, he has to stow away and kind of go up to another room and weep and cry because he's so overwhelmed. These are his family and he loves them and he wants to take care of them. But he's also probably overwhelmed because he's thinking about everything that has happened and transpired since they sold him into slavery. And there's a lot of emotions that are behind all of that. Don't men, it's okay to cry. See, Joseph cried. It's okay. It's okay to cry when the moment's right. So, brings him back. And he decides he's going to have a feast. And this is great. I love this. So, Joseph is sitting at his table, right? And all the others, the Egyptians at their table because they don't mix with the Israelites. And he sets the brothers in birth order. Now, this might not sound like a huge deal, but if you had 11 men standing before you, and you were given the task of putting them in order of youngest to oldest, I doubt any of us would probably get it 100% right. Pretty sure of that. But Joseph doesn't get one, doesn't get two, doesn't get three, gets all of them in perfect order. And it tells us that as they're eating, then the brothers turned and one looked at another, goes, do you realize that we are actually in order? How did he know to set us this way? How did he know? And he gives Benjamin extra portions of goodness and food because, well, he loves him, right? It's his full brother. He loves him. And now they're even more shocked. But then, as they prepare to leave, he tells them, one of his workers, hey, take my silver cup, put it in Benjamin's bag. I've got a plan. So they leave. They take grain. They get that. And as they get trucked down the road, some of his workers come out and they said, hey, why did you steal from your master's table? We didn't steal anything. It's like, I tell you, whoever has this cup is going to become my slave. And they're like, check our bags. We didn't take anything. So one by one, they open their eggs and sure enough, it gets to Benjamin and the silver cup is in there. They're like, oh no, not Benjamin. Because again, they had promised to take care of Benjamin. They had promised to make sure nothing would happen to him. Jacob made it clear that you need to bring him back. Very sad, right? That's very sad, right? So we get through all that. And then as they come back and they come back to Joseph, Joseph finally breaks down and he admits to who he is. And he goes, I am Joseph. I am your brother. And they're like, and he goes, is my father still alive and well? Can you imagine the horror and the shock at the revelation of these brothers that this is Joseph? Not only at the fact that this is Joseph, but now everything that has transpired since they've been coming to Egypt to buy grain, they're replaying all of this in their heads. Not to mention, again, Joseph is second most important in the land. Are you really going to let that guy have it? Because he has power that you can't fully grasp. But Joseph, he's all about loving on his family. And he's all about standing for God. He's all about doing the right thing. And so Joseph is like, is my father still alive and well? Is he good? And they're like, yes, he is. And he's like, I need to see him. And so he's like, hey, Pharaoh, I have these brothers of mine and my father is still alive. He's like, sure, bring him to the land. We'll give him some land and they can live near you. Absolutely. They're your family. They're our family. Let's go. Right. So he sends them with caravans of donkeys and help and money and clothing and all this. And he goes, bring my father. I'll get you a place. Come home. Come to me and I will take care of you. I'll make sure you have food. I'll make sure you have everything you need. So the brothers go back and they get to Jacob. And Jacob's happy because Benjamin's back. He was concerned. But then all the brothers are like, dude, you'll never believe what just happened. Now, this is not a conversation you would expect to have. Joseph is dead as far as you know. Joseph died 20 some odd years ago, right? And they look at him and they're like, Father, Joseph is alive. I can't imagine the amount of silence that follows that. They would have said, Father, Joseph is alive. And they're like, and he's like, wait, what? Here's the other thing. They have to come clean. If Joseph is alive, that means either somebody didn't tell the truth or somehow his coat was left behind. I don't know. It never tells us. I don't believe it ever tells us that they come clean to their father. I would think that one of them would have at that point because they were probably convicted by seeing Joseph. I'm pretty sure one of them, maybe even Reuben, would have gave in and said, Father, listen, this is actually how this all went down. But Jacob is just so thrilled. He is so excited because I'm going to get to see Joseph. He goes, let's go. I want to see him before I die because he's getting quite old. Okay. So they gather all their stuff, all their flocks, and they travel to Egypt and they settle in the land of Goshen. And y'all, Joseph takes care of them and he establishes a home for them. And he makes sure that they're taken care of. And he makes sure that Pharaoh knows that this is my family. We need to take care of them. Y'all, the life of Joseph is unlike anything else. Joseph shows us so many things. But again, I'm going to reiterate this again because I really feel that this is the most important takeaway we have from this account. If we are to be people of the word, if we are to be people of God, then our lives should reflect it 110%. That means that whether we're sitting in prison or we're slaves in a house or whether we're serving our families in our homes, whether we're at work, whatever we do, wherever we go, we serve the Lord. Joseph is such a good example of this because he served the entire time. He made sure that everybody around him knew where he stood, knew what he stood for, and knew who he was serving. This is the kind of faith we need to have. We need to know that we stand on the firm foundation that is Christ. Nothing else really matters. Because that's the whole point, my friends. We live for an audience of one. Yes, I care what my husband thinks. I care about this or that. But the truth is, at the end of the day, I really don't. I'm living my life for the Lord. And that's exactly how Joseph felt. He was living for God 110%. And looking through a lot of the accounts of the Bible, Joseph is one of the few that exemplifies it so honestly and so joyfully. I don't know if in heaven I'm going to have a say in who I meet and who I don't. And I'm sure heaven has no clock, so I'll get to meet everybody. But there are certain people that I can't wait to sit around a table and talk to. And Joseph is absolutely one of them. Because Joseph reminds me every time I don't belong to anybody but the Lord. That I have to give an account to him, to nobody else. And that everything I do should be reflective of my faith. No matter where I go, no matter whether I'm sitting in that pew on Sunday morning or I'm out with my friends on Friday night, whether I'm teaching the kids on Wednesday or out to dinner with my husband on Saturday, no matter where I go or what I do, I should reflect Christ. I'm going to fail at that. You're going to fail at that because we are fallen humans, and I'm sure Joseph failed at that. But Joseph is one of the few that gives us a great example of faith. A great example of faith in very hard circumstances. In circumstances we can't fully grasp. And yet all the while, it's absolutely beautiful. I want to encourage you to take time to really read through the life of Joseph. Not just read through it as, yeah, we know, we've heard it before. But to slow down and take your time to read through Genesis 37 through 50. Because the life of Joseph is such an encouragement. No matter where you find yourself, my friends, whether you find yourself in a job that is not going anywhere, whether you find yourself in a circumstance that seems like there is no out, whether you find yourself lost and lonely, whether you find yourself doing well, find yourself in the Lord, because it all should be pointing back to him. And much like Joseph said to Potiphar's wife, I'm not going to go against my employer. I'm not going to go against God. We should be the same. We should be so obedient to the Lord that everyone understands exactly what we stand for, exactly who we stand for. I think about people like in NASCAR and football and in many sports where they have like the names of people who pay so that they can do that. Like NASCAR, they have sponsors and stuff like that. People who have your back, people that you want to make proud. The only name we should be concerned about is that of the Lord. That's what should be across our uniform. Jesus. Our desire should be to bring him glory, to bring him honor. It's not about us. It wasn't about Joseph. It's about the Lord. 100%. Think about that this week. Think about that in your life. How you can exemplify your faith. How you can praise God even in circumstances that aren't going your way. How you can stand on the firm foundation that is Christ, giving him all the glory and honor that is rightly due to him. I hope you found this encouraging. I hope you guys have enjoyed our study of the book of Genesis. Like I said, I'm going to do what exactly, I enjoy the deeper study, but I have many who are like, can you just do like a Cliff Notes version of an overhaul of each book of the Bible? And that's what we're going to do throughout this. I have VBS next week, so I'll be busy, but this is going to come out while I'm at camp. So be praying for all the churches around you that are hosting VBS this summer. It is a week where we get to take these kids and share the gospel with them. Some of these kids, this is the only time they hear it. So be praying for your churches around you and churches within the world that are taking the opportunity to do that this summer. I hope you guys do have a good summer. I hope you enjoy this. I can't wait to share more content with you going forward. Have a great day. Have a blessed week. To God be the glory.